Good afternoon, everybody. So let's continue today's discussion. So first of all, I think it's great that many of you could turn up. So that's very useful so that there can be some interaction. Anyway, so let's commence. So today we will look at some VC, how to compute VC dimension for various types of hypothesis. That's what we will do now. Okay. So let me share my screen. Just a minute. I need to get my cable. It is in the other room. I'll just be back. Okay, so yeah, so let's commence. So as I was saying, we will look at how to compute the VC dimension for several hypotheses. Okay, so that is the object of today's class. But before that, let us review various things that we had learned in this space. Okay, so this is again, we are back to the empirical risk minimization framework, right? So in this framework, there are several things that we need to keep in mind, right? The important things, the most important things is basically R of H, which is expected value of the loss. Okay, and H of X is your hypothesis. And then we also define what is called as the empirical risk or data error, which is 1 over n summation L of yi h of xi, right? I equal to 1 to n, small n. Okay, maybe I'll write it properly. Okay, so this is what that is. And what we would ideally like is we would like H star, which is argmin over whatever is there in my bag of R of H. This is what I would ideally like. What I hope to get, I mean, what I can only get because of the way things are designed is that I can only get in the data sample that is given to me, I can only get what is the best that explains the particular given data sample. And that data sample, we call it as Sn, which is xi, yi, I equal to 1 to n. Okay, so this is all the things that we know about this problem. And then we saw that for consistency of empirical risk minimization, which means, so if you want to get consistency, so that means R of Hn star, okay, the whatever you are learning, if you want it to get closer and closer to R of H star, what you need is, this can happen if and only if, right, both directions, if and only if we have something called as uniform convergence, uniform weak law of large numbers, right? So what is that? Probability of supremum in my bag, H belonging to H. Okay, I will look at Rn hat of H minus R of H. This entire quantity becoming bigger than epsilon, this should be less than or equal to delta. Okay, for all n greater than or equal to n. So epsilon delta, you should be able to do this for any epsilon delta greater than 0. Okay, so So for that, there exists an n which only depends upon epsilon and delta. Okay, so this is what is called as uniform convergence, right? So all of these things we have seen. And then from here, what we saw was first case was very easy. We saw what happens in the case of finite. Okay, for finite hypothesis set, okay, HF, the count is equal to M. What we saw is that we saw that probability that supremum H belonging to H, HF, okay, Rn hat of H minus RH greater than epsilon. This is less than or equal to 2m e power minus n epsilon square. Okay, 2n epsilon square, right? This is what we saw. And here m is the number of, so capital M happens to be the number of things in my bag. Okay, and then from there, when we went to infinite hypothesis, we got something else, very similar looking, but here remember H is infinity. Okay, so here what we said is we can show probability that supremum over H belonging to H, Rn hat H minus R of H greater than epsilon. This is less than equal to 4. Okay, sometimes in some textbooks they write 8, but a tighter one is 4. Okay, so 4 m h 2n e power minus n epsilon square by 8. Okay, so where mh2n, okay, this represents how many effective hypotheses are there. Okay, this is like the maximum over all possible arrangements that you can think of this particular thing, right? So we understand that for a particular 2n samples, okay, the number of points that you can shatter, that depends on the particular S2n. So if you were to look at all possible ways in which the points can be arranged, and you take the max, this is what is that max, and we use this here. Okay, but the problem that remains is we don't know whether that is really enough to get consistency, right? Because this is growing down as negative exponential. This is a function of 2 power n in the worst case, right? So this is always bounded above by 2 power 2n, right? This is always bounded by this. So if this is actually 2 power 2n, then we cancel out. There is no useful thing that we can get, and as a result, consistency will not be achieved. However, what was shown by VC, let me make some. So what was shown by VC is this. So what they showed is this result. So I will have to look at the exact thing. But so first thing that they did was they rewrote this. So they rewrote this as probability supremum H belonging to H, Rn hat of H minus R of H greater than epsilon. They rewrote it as 4 e power minus n epsilon square by 8 plus, okay, plus ln m of h2n, right? So this is just a silly, simple thing. And then what they said is they defined what is called as growth function of for the hypothesis bag H, okay, and m, for example, can take value 2n. They defined this as ln m h of 2n, okay, and they showed that for all hypothesis bag, okay, there exists something called as VC dimension for that bag, which can be less than or equal to infinity. Okay, so that what happens? So that GH of M, okay, is equal to M ln 2, okay, or it is dVCH times ln m by dVCH plus 1, something like this. Okay, so they showed that for all if you have data points less than or equal to VC, dVC of H, then what happens? The worst case is the worst possible thing, which is 2 power m, right? I mean, when you take e power gh, this will become, when you take e power ln of this, the ln goes away and you are left with the exponent of this, right? So that I hope it's clear. So you get 2 power m back. Okay, whereas if you are given m greater than dVc, then you have something better, right? Now, if you see, this particular function grows as a logarithm of n. Okay, so if you replace m by 2n in this function, right? This is what is this? This is gh of 2n, right? So if you replace this function for this region, even though there is a linear term here, minus n epsilon square, the term that is growing here in the other part, that is only logarithmic, right? Because ln m is lesser than the linear term. So in some sense, as you keep increasing the number of samples, there is hope to learn. Okay, so this is what we saw. So now what we will do in today's class is we will look at a few examples and how to compute dVc of H. So that is the objective. So one conclusion that you must understand, there are two things that you can understand. So one is, if dVc of H is less than infinity, that implies, okay, H is consistent. Okay, H is consistent in ERM, right? And if dVch is equal to infinity, okay, so then we can say this implies that learning is not feasible. Okay, so we have not shown 2 and neither have we shown completely 1, but yeah, so this is something that you can understand very intuitively. Okay, learning is infeasible. So yeah, so this is what we saw in the previous class. So I hope all of these things are clear to everybody. So let us look at a few examples. Okay, so one thing that we already saw in the last class. So we saw that for a perceptron, okay, perceptron in R2, right? For a perceptron in R2, we saw two things. What I showed was, in this configuration, when you have points like this, okay, you are able to shatter these points in all the 8 possible ways. So let me just enumerate all the 8 possible ways in which you can shatter it. Okay, so 1, this is the case where all are zeros. Okay, this is the case where all these points are considered as 1. This is only where, this is a straight line, mind you, and then this is only where this is 1. This is only where this is 1. This is the case where this is 1, these two are zeros. Now we should do 2 at a time, right? So 2 at a time is easy. All I am doing is these 3 will repeat with the other direction. So, okay, fine. Let me write it. Okay. This one and this one we will write. And finally this one. So we get all possible 8 ways in this, right? So remember, so what we have, we said dVc of H, right? So for all points, so this is whenever you are able to find a single some configuration S2n, okay, so that you can shatter the points, right? Shatter means you can get, so sorry, let me not write S2n, Sn I will write, or let me call it as Sm, right? Because the growth function, we are calling it as gh of m. So if you can, so if you say that you can shatter if you are able to get all 2 power m possible hypothesis. If you get that, you say that this is shattered. Okay, and looking at the curve here, okay, so since I am able to produce one particular configuration which can shatter, one thing is clear for this particular hypothesis. So dVc of H should be greater than 3, right? Okay, and now for so when we look at this was one side of the story, and then we completed it by taking configuration of 4 points. There are two ways in which 4 points can happen. Okay, so here remember we are considering all possible configurations of 4 points. Okay, in the all possible configuration there are only two ways. One is you have 3 points collinear, or you don't have 3 points collinear. So if three points are collinear, you will have something like this. Okay, and if 3 points are not collinear, you know that you will get a quadrilateral. Okay, so and what we said is if I make these as positive points, and in the case of the non-collinear case, if I make these as the positive points, we showed that we cannot shatter. Okay, so what this shows us is that for 4 points we are in this region, right? So we got that 4 is greater than 4 is, so here we should write that dBc is less than or equal to 3. Okay, and here we'll get 4 is greater than dBc of h. So combining these two, we get dBc of h is equal to 3. So this is what we saw in the last class. So today what we will do is we will do perceptron in RD. Okay, before that we will see some more simple examples. Okay, so are there any questions? Am I even online?
Yes, sir, you're online.
Okay, so everything is clear, Siddharth, so far?
Yes, it is clear to me.
Okay.
So can you repeat, like, what does shattering mean once again? Like, what shattering means, that we can split it into 2-part M
configuration. So if I'm able to show you a single sample of points from R2 in such a way that for those sample of points, I'm able to get all the 2 power m hypothesis from my bag. Okay, so I can only take linear separation, right? Because perceptron is a linear separating class, right? It finds a hyperplane that separates the positive and the negative points. So I'm allowed to only pick linear hyperplanes. Okay, so I'm able to show that for these 3 points, I can separate in like all possible arrangements, like whatever label I give, I'm able to do.
So for for 3 points, there exists some arrangement of those 3 points for which we are getting 2-par 3 configurations.
Yes.
That is why we say the dVc is greater than equal to 3.
Yes, because you remember when you come back to this expression, right, Rohit? We took max over S2n, remember?
Yes.
So that is where it is coming. So this is we are taking the worst possible case.
Yes. Yes.
So just to get this even more clear, so if I take, for example, points which are collinear, 3 points which are collinear, Rohit, can you understand that this we cannot shatter, right? These configuration I cannot get.
Yes, sir.
But that doesn't violate this statement, because I need to produce only one configuration where this is happening. Okay.
Yes, sir. But then for 4 points also, we can arrange them in sort of like a way where we get.
Yes, that is the important point. That is a good question. So I'm saying for 4 points, either 3 points are collinear or they are not. Do you agree?
Yes.
So if 3 points are collinear, it boils down to the previous case. For instance, I cannot separate these points, so I cannot shatter it. Correct?
Yes.
And if they are not collinear, then they will form a quadrilateral in R2. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So then I can opposite vertices, I will mark as plus. I cannot separate them also. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So do you understand? This is arguing all possible configurations. For 4 points, I'm arguing all possible configurations.
Yes.
That's okay. Very good. And I repeat this several times because people don't, they make mistake here. Okay, so this is a crucial point. So now perceptrons in yeah.
So this argument is not enough for the 4 points, no?
It is
in the quadrilateral case.
Yeah.
Like it can be a convex concave polygon. For a concave polygon, like make a triangle and then take a point inside it.
Okay, I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Centroid.
Something like this, right?
Like,
yes.
So then I can give this and this points. Then how will you separate?
Like, so it is centroid now. So like there must be some line which is passing through that, right?
No.
Like, It's not
Okay.
collinear.
It is not collinear. Okay, so let me try to justify what I'm. Okay, I understand what you're saying. So I will make this as positive. Okay, now what about it?
Then we can't do it.
Yeah. So see, yeah, you're right. You should argue such things. You should try to find out for flaws in the proof. Okay, but anyway, I gave a geometric proof for this because it is nice and visually appealing. But as you can see, we haven't argued all possible cases. So good point that you mentioned. So our proof is incomplete until we add this. Okay, but nevertheless, it still holds, right, Ankit?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So now after this, so there is yeah. So there are a few standard proofs which people discuss. So I would also like to repeat that, but you can find them in any text. But it's interesting. If you have not seen it before, you will find that this is pretty interesting. Okay. So we have seen an example where VC dimension is finite, which is 3, right? And one thing that you can understand is in a perceptron, there are 3 parameters that we would like to learn. So VC dimension often agrees with the number of parameters that we have to learn. Okay, so now another example where VC dimension is infinite, dVC of H is infinity. Okay, so this is again in R2, and I would like to use convex polygons. Okay, so the hypothesis class, so I have to explain, so R2, whereas with the hypothesis class, which is convex polygons. Okay, and all your positive points should be in the convex polygon. Okay, so an example of this could be like this. So these are all the positive points and negative points are outside. So your axis parallel rectangle is an example of a convex polygon. But I'm saying we can actually think of even more general. We can take any convex polygon. So shapes such as a pentagon, okay, or an hexagon, all these things are permitted. So we are going to argue that dVC of H for this hypothesis bag of convex polygons is infinity. Okay, so that is what we will do. So if we need to show that dVCH of a something is infinity, what we need to show? Can someone tell me? Look at this. Look at this. I'm just giving people time to think. I hope you are thinking, and yeah. I'm just asking, I'm not asking the proof of how you will show that. I'm asking what we need to show. Okay, so let me just say, okay, so if we need to show that something is infinity, what I need to show is I need to produce for all M, I need to produce, there exists some configuration of these SM points such that, okay, SM is shattered. All right, so that's all I need to do. I hope this is clear to people. To show something is having infinite VC dimension, what we need to show is for every finite M, I should be able to produce a configuration, one configuration. Is that all right? Can I quickly check in the chat box if you follow? Yes, is this clear?
No, sir.
Okay, Rajneesh. Good. All right, so that's all we need to show, and the construction is as follows. So what we do is whenever you want to produce for any M, all you need to do is take a circle, okay, and put all the configurations that you want, the M points that you are interested in, you just put it here. So let us say m is equal to 7. So 1, 2, 3. These are, let us say, these are all the negative points. The positive points, let me put it in red. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7. Okay, so this is it. Now, what is the convex polygon connecting these 3 points? So provided that all your points are lying in a circle, all you do is you take a convex hull which contains these 4 points. Convex hull is the smallest convex region which contains these 4 points. Okay, so I think it is important to tell what is a convex set. So what's a convex set? So convex set is a nice set which has the property that if x comma y, for all x comma y that belongs to the convex set C, okay, any line joining these 2 points also belongs to C. Line segment, I should say, line segment joining x and y also completely lies in C, right? So that means if I take like 0.3x plus 0.7y, okay, so this is a point. So if this, let me take a convex body. So this is a convex set. So this is x and this is y. So line joining is completely contained. So 0.3x plus 0.7y is this point here. Okay, this also lies in C. In fact, for every alpha x plus 1 minus alpha y, this lies in C, and alpha is a number between 0 and 1. Okay, so this is the definition of a convex set. Okay, so what is a convex hull? I don't know if you have read this, but if you have taken optimization, definitely you have seen this. But if you have algorithms also, you may or may not have seen. So I don't know. So I'm repeating this. So convex hull of points x1. So these are the points which are forming the hull, x1, x2, x3, x4. Okay. So convex hull, what you say is basically you look at the 4 points or n points that you want to form the convex hull of, and what you say is so set of all points such, okay, which have all the things like alpha I xi I equal to 1 to n, the n points that you are taking convex hull of, and the alphas, what you do is you take alphas in such a way that they sum to 1. So this is the mathematical object. Okay, so these are the 4 points. You take any 4 convex combination of these 4 points, and whatever is there, that point also you add it to your set. Okay, so this set is called as convex hull, okay, of the x1, x2, x3, x4. This is one definition. Another definition is convex hull is the smallest convex set containing x1, x2, x3, x4, these 4 points. Okay, so now coming back to the problem in hand, what we said was if you want to show dvc of h is infinity, I hope I am still online.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so if I want to show dvc of h is infinity for convex polygons, I need to be able to shatter any m points. For all m integers, I should be able to shatter it. And what does it mean to say that you can shatter? Means I should be able to produce one sample which I can shatter, and the particular sample that we will choose always for this construction is we will choose a circle, and we will arrange the points along the circle, and any subset of that you want to mark as positive, you mark. Okay, and as soon as you mark it, there exists a convex hull that can actually do this. So this convex hull now separates the positive and the negative points. Okay, so another way to think of convex hull of 4 points is, if you want to find convex hull of, let's say, these 5 points, imagine a tight rubber band that you can put. Okay, so that is another way to visualize this. So whatever shape that rubber band makes, that is a convex hull. Okay, again, my drawing is poor, but you can understand that these are all like very tight. Okay, so this is a convex hull. So there are two definitions of convex hull. So now any case, so this is one configuration. Suppose I wanted this one positive, and this one positive. So let me just draw that as well, just to make the point more clear. Oops. So I'm saying now, let us not bother about these points as being positive points. Let us invert it. Let us look at the other 3 points as being convex. Okay, so that means we will have to color these 3 points as red. And again, the procedure is same. You put a tight rubber band around these 3 points, and that forms a convex hull, and that will be able to separate. So let us draw that. Okay, so now we can show, I have shown only 2 configurations, but there are totally 2 power m ways in which you can do this, and every 2 power m way I will be able to separate. Okay, so I hope this example is also clear. Okay, so let's move on now to something else. So yeah, so if I ask you in the exam to do something like this, so I would like you to suppose if I want to show, right? So let me ask this quiz. Okay, so quiz in class. So suppose I ask you to prove something like prove the dVc of h of something is equal to 5. Okay, prove this equal to 5. And I say that suppose what are all the things I need to do? Option A, produce 5 points configuration that cannot be shattered. That is option A. Okay. Option B is produce 5 points configuration that can be shattered. Option C is produce 6 points set that cannot be shattered. And option D, show that every 6 point set cannot be shattered. Okay. So if I were to ask you, how would you do this? So if I say something is VC is 5, which of the 4 things would you do? You may have to do multiple. So can you show in the chat what you will do? So if you don't know what to do, please put a question mark. So that is also an indication for me that you are not following. So I may repeat. Okay, many of you haven't answered. I don't know why, but okay, Rajnish, you have no idea. All right. So Rajnish, do you want to walk through with me on where you are facing difficulty?
But actually, I lost from where you started and completely data.
Okay, so so where did you lose? So did you understand this?
Yes, sir. Yes.
This you followed, right?
Yes.
So now, when I come to this, did you follow this?
No, sir. This convex part I know beforehand from our approaching. But
So now,
EBC h equal to infinity, and then what you told.
yeah, I will explain to you. See, now basically the DVC is like the largest number of points that you can shatter, right? So DVC, if you look at this definition properly, Rajneesh, you can see that DVC is the largest number of points that you can shatter, correct? Here.
Yes, sir.
So now if I'm saying DVC is infinity, I should show that for any, no matter what M I choose, I should be able to produce a configuration that you can shatter, right? Is that okay?
Can you repeat that line?
So if I have to claim that a hypothesis bag has infinite VC dimension, I should basically, for every finite M, I should be able to show you a configuration which you can shatter. By shattering, I mean you can produce 2 power M different hypotheses from your bag, which can get all possible configuration. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
See, for instance, when I said we shattered this, these 3 points, there are totally 2 power 3, which is 8 different ways in which I can separate these points, right? And I should be able to produce hypotheses which are able to do that. This you are able to understand, right?
Yes, sir.
So, but it is not saying that every 3 points you can shatter like this. For instance, if the 3 points are on a line, you cannot shatter, correct? This also you understand.
Yes, sir.
So in the same way, if I am able to claim that DVC is infinity, that means I should show that for every finite, I should be able to shatter. And the way we did the proof is, I said that you arrange the points along a circle, put the points uniformly spaced along the circle. Now, whichever points you want to mark as positive, okay, you put a like a rubber band along those points that will only contain these 4 points, and everything else will be outside. Okay, and that way you can get any 4 points, you can separate any 2 points, you can separate. Even if it's 1 point, you just put a rubber band around 1 point, that is also going to work. Everything is a convex set and they are able to separate. Rajneesh?
Sir, what I got, if I just put a rubber band around x1, x2, x3, x4, then what is the conclusion that I got?
Sorry?
Sir, if I put a rubber band around x1, x2, x3, x4,
Yeah.
then what conclusion do I get from this particular thing?
Oh, no. Okay, so let us take one example. Okay, so let us take, there are 5 points. So let's say M equal to 5. Okay, I will put the 5 points here along the periphery like this. 1, 2, 3. Let me just uniformly place it so that my life is a little easier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now, Rajneesh, how many possible ways are there to get? How many possible ways in which I can shatter these points? Can you tell me?
2 to the power 5.
2 to the power of 5, right? Which is equal to 32. So now I am going to show you that we can get 32 different configurations from this. Okay. So if I color any one of them as positive, so let me mark all the positives with a blue. So see, if I color this one as blue, or 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 this one as blue, I can do it easily. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
So that is done. So so if there is no blue, 0, like number of blue points is 0, that is done. Number of blue points is 1, that is also done, right?
Yes,
Now number of blue points is 2. Suppose any 2 you take. Let's suppose I take this and this. I can put a rubber band around this. Okay. And I'm able to separate these 2 from the rest. Correct?
Yes.
So
Yes.
all possible 2 points I can separate. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Now for 3 points. So 3 points, any 3 points you take, I can take a rubber band around those 3 points and I can separate other 2.
Yes, sir.
This is a convex thing. This is a convex hull, right? So 3 points is separatable. 4 points also you can do in the similar way. Any 4 points you like, you can do. Right? So that is also doable. 5 points is trivial. You just put the rubber band over the whole damn thing. That is also separable. Okay, so I have shattered these 5 points. Okay, now if I take M equal to 25, is there anything changing? If I take M equal to 25, so let's just do that. So there are 25 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You understand? 10,
Yes,
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Some 25 points are there. I can again do the same business, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that is what the putting the rubber band around these 4 points is accomplishing. These 4 points are a representative. I'm saying no matter what subset you take, you can do this. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
So that is why the VC dimension is infinity. Do you understand now?
But if instead of that 5 points which you uniformly place, instead of uniformly placed, if the original configuration did not allow us to form a circle.
That is a good question, and for that I bring your attention back to this, right? So what we said is we are able to choose the configuration I want, right? So you'll see this MH of 2n is we are choosing this S2n, correct?
Yes.
Do you understand now? So I am free as long as if I want to show something VC dimension is bigger than something, I am able to choose this. Okay. If I want to show VC dimension is bigger than 5, those 5 points I am able to choose. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So far you are with me?
Yes, sir.
So now coming to this particular case, if I have to show some class has VC dimension 5, okay, I need to produce basically 5 points that can be shattered. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Because VC dimension equal to 5 means I have to show DVC of H is greater than or equal to 5, and I have to show that DVC of H is less than 6, right? Something like this I need to show.
Yes.
So this part you understand. This is like the same thing. I am able to produce. Now to show that DVC is less than 6, I should check for every configuration and say that they cannot be shattered, right? Here I need to check for all possible configurations. Whatever you can think of, I should check.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now you are clear. Okay, so what about Anmol? Anmol, is it clear now? How about Anmol? Vipul? Vipul, do you follow? Okay, I don't know about Vipul is not saying anything. Okay, anyway, that's good. So thanks Rajneesh for asking, because that helps everybody. All right, so now this is one last thing I want to do for today. Again, one more example.
In this particular deep part, you said that for all possible configurations, I cannot set that. This I need to show.
This you need to show. Otherwise, if you are able to produce one configuration that can be shattered, then your DVC is bigger than or equal to 6, right? If I'm able to produce, yeah. For this example, if I am able to show that there is a 6-point configuration that you can shatter, that means DVC of H is bigger than or equal to 6, not strictly less than 6.
Yes, sir.
Understood, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, basically, let me write this, okay, just for the sake of it. For this DVC greater than or equal to 5, we need to show there exists, okay, a M such that there exists an M and there exists a set SM such that SM is shattered. If we get that, what we get, DVC of H, okay, is bigger than or equal to M. Okay, now if I take the contrapositive, like if I negate this statement, what will I get? For all SM, okay, such that SM, for all SM and SM is not shattered, okay, then we will get DVC H is smaller than M. Okay, these are the two things. This you need to show, this you need to show. Then you will be able to show that. Okay, so don't get confused with M. I will put a M prime if that helps. Okay, these are different numbers. So this will. So if you show this M prime for M prime equal to M plus 1, then you are showing that DVC of H is equal to M. Okay. Anyway, if you understood this part, it's okay. Okay, don't get confused with this unnecessary math. Okay, all right. So now coming to the last example of the day, what we would like to show is a generalization of this perceptron. Okay, so here when we were discussing it, I think if I'm not wrong, Ankur or Ankit, one of you showed that this configuration was not addressed, right? So we need a more robust proof for perceptron in RD. Okay, so that is what we will do. A more robust proof for perceptron in RD, D-dimensional space. Okay, so let's argue that. So next example is that, so H is perceptron in RD, okay, D dimension. What I need to show is that D VC of H is equal to D plus 1. Okay, so in case of R2, we already saw that it is 2 plus 1, 3, right? So this extends to RD, that is what we have to show. Okay, so before that, we need to show a simple lemma, and then that will lead us to a proper proof for this. So we will do this for the last 15 minutes, and we will finish the entire theory of VC dimension. Okay, so once this example is done, I hope all of you will understand what we need to do to show that a particular hypothesis has some VC dimension equal to 5 or 7 or whatever. Okay, so that I hope everybody will be able to do. This is the last example in this topic. Okay, so now so we want to show that perceptron is RD, right? So before that, we need a helping lemma. Okay, so the lemma says as follows. So if you are given a set of points in RD, let S1 be a set of points, let's say x1, x2 to some xm. Okay, and S2 is another set of points, call it as y1, y2 to ym. Okay, so these are all subsets. All these points are in subsets of RD. Okay, so what I mean to say is xi's and yi's. Xi belongs to RD and yi's also belong to RD. Okay, there are basically some collection of subsets in RD. So that's all this is. And what the theorem, the helping theorem that we need here says as follows. So S1 and S2 are linearly separable. Okay, so everybody knows what is linearly separable. If and only if convex hull of S1 and convex hull of S2 is linearly separable. So let us look at a visualization of this. So you are given some set of points like this, right? So let us say this is your S1 and some other points. Let's say this is your S2. Okay. And what is meant by linearly separable? There exists some W transpose X and B, right? You can have some line like this, which is W transpose X equal to W transpose X plus B equal to 0, right? Something like this. And this region will be W transpose X. So W is like this. So W transpose X plus B greater than 0. This is the region where W transpose X plus B is less than 0, right? This is what is meant by linearly separable. Okay. So in the previous, I mean, there are many ways in, don't get confused. In the past, we used to write this as W transpose X equal to B. I have just written plus B equal to 0 by moving the B on the other side and changing its sign. But nothing changes, right? So if you are able to separate points, this is what it means. And what is the convex hull? So let me draw the convex hull, which is the smallest rubber band, right? So let me choose a different color from all the things that we have used. So this is the convex hull of S1. This is the convex hull of S2. Okay, so at least for this example, it is clear, right? If I'm able to separate the points, I am also able to separate the convex hull. Okay, so yeah, so now let's try to prove this. So the convex hull definition we have already seen. So convex of some set S, convex hull of some set S is basically collection of all. So S, let us say, so S1 let us take. Okay, so S1 is all the points x1 to xm, right? So convex hull of this is basically set of all points x such that x is equal to the convex combination of all these points alpha I xi I equal to 1 to m, okay, and alpha i's are greater than or equal to 0 as what is meant by convex combination, then alpha i's should sum to 1. So this is the definition of convex hull. Okay. So similarly, I will the other definition is similar, just that instead of alpha I, some other beta I yi and beta I greater than, all those things continue to hold. Okay, so we need to prove this in two directions. So if something is linearly separable, it implies that the convex set is the convex hull is linearly separable. On the other side, if convex hull is linearly separable, it implies that the sets are linearly separable. So we will look at the easier part first. So let me just copy. So let me write this once again. So we will look at this case first. So S1, S2 are linearly separable. This is guaranteed if convex hull of S1 and convex hull of S2 is linearly separable. So I'm telling that these two convex fellows you can separate. Okay. Right. So these two convex fellows I can separate. So can you show that the points are linearly separable? What is the proof for this? Would someone like to say it?
For customer?
Sorry?
For customer?
Separating hyperplanes.
No. See, there are two bodies. The two bodies are already separated. I'm saying a subset of them, is it separated or not? Right? So that is easy.
Oh.
Yeah. So see, S1 is a subset of convex hull of S1, right? And similarly, S2 is a subset of convex hull of S2. Okay. So therefore, we are done there essentially.
Yes.
Right? Because if you can separate the convex bodies, then we are done. Okay. So this is done. So now the other direction. So let's look at the other direction. Yeah. So I am hoping that you will ask questions if you don't follow. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so other direction is a little more complicated. So what we need to do is if S1 and S2 are linearly separable, that will imply that convex hulls are linearly separable. That is what we need to show. Instead of that, what we will say is, suppose if convex hulls are not linearly separable, okay, then it implies that S1 and S2 are not linearly separable. Okay, that is what we will show. So we will, instead of trying to show in the other way, like if convex hull S1 and S2, so see, I want to show A implies B, right? Instead of that, I will show not B implies not A. All right. I don't know if this is something difficult, but you let me know if there are any questions here. Okay. Okay, so I think, yeah, so this is done. So we need to prove this direction, right? So let us do that. S1, S2 are linearly separable. Okay, that implies that convex hull of S1 and convex hull of S2 is linearly separable. This is what we need to show. Okay, so there are two ways. One way is if, yeah, so yeah, I think it is, yeah, I will not, so this one, because of lack of time, there is only 5 minutes left. I will leave this as a homework for you. Okay. So let's, or maybe I should do it. I'm getting a little hurried up. Okay. So we will, yeah. Okay, fine. Let me try it. So S1 and S2 are linearly separable. That means there exists W and B such that W transpose Xi plus B, okay, this is greater than 0 for all Xi belonging to S1, right? And what about the other thing? W transpose Yi plus B should be less than 0 for all Yi belonging to S2. So that is the meaning of something being linearly separable, right? So there exists W and B such that W transpose Xi plus B is greater than 0 for this guys, and W transpose Yi plus B is less than equal to 0 for this side, right? So now what we do is, if something is not, yeah, so for every point X in S1, okay, for any X which is equal to, which belongs to convex set of S1, what do we have? We have this X is equal to some alpha I Xi, right? I equal to 1 to M. If you remember the definition of the convex set, that is what we wrote. So now applying, suppose if I try to do W transpose X plus B on that, what do we get? So we get W transpose X plus B is equal to applying W transpose this. So we will get W transpose summation alpha I Xi plus B. Okay, so this, I can push this inside. So I'm using the same W and B which separates this, okay? I'm just using the same thing. So what do we get? The W transpose comes inside. So you will get alpha I W transpose Xi, right? Plus B. Plus B, which is outside. And now what I will do is, I will write this B as summation alpha I B. Because summation alpha I sums to 1, right? And then I will write this as summation alpha I W transpose Xi plus B. Okay, so now W transpose Xi plus B from this is greater than 0. So this entire term is greater than 0. Okay, so what did we show? For X belonging to convex of S1, we got W transpose X plus B is greater than 0. Similarly, you can show for Y belonging to convex of S2, we can show W transpose X, W transpose Y plus B is less than 0. So essentially what we have shown is whatever hyperplane separates these 2 points also separates the convex hull. All right. So this is this next part. So there is one more part that I need to show. This was just a helper theorem. Okay, I need to still show that the perceptron in RD has D plus 1 dimension. So what I will do, I don't want to keep you all waiting. So I can actually record it offline and then share it with you. Shall we do that? Or can we take 15 minutes and finish this?
We can do it right now.
Okay, so those of you who are, yeah, I will do it right now, but yeah, I just, yeah, okay. I just don't want to make you stay, but let's just finish this, right? Otherwise, I will have to still do, I will be left with the important part. So let's just finish it. So if there are any questions till this part, please ask me. Okay, so let's just finish it. I'm sorry that I'm making you stay. So let's just finish this. So now, given any M points in RD, that there is a theorem which you are going to prove next. Okay, so given M points in RD, okay, there is a theorem that what we do is, so call these points as x0, x1, x2, and to xm minus 1. Okay, so one of these points, we take as origin. Okay, this shifting of origin you anyway know, right? So one of these points we take as origin. So Okay, so one of the points we take as origin. Then the set of m points. So one of these points we take as origin. So we have points like 0, x1, x2 up till xm minus 1. Okay, so there are m points in RD. One of these I will take it as 0. The other things I will just shift it by the appropriate number and I will get this, right? So the set of m points, that means including this 0, all of these m points, okay, can be shattered if and only if the m minus 1 points are linearly independent. Okay, so I hope you remember the definition of linear independence in your linear algebra class, right? So linearly independent points are those which cannot be, one cannot be expressed as some linear combination of the other, right? So recall the definition. So x1 up to xm minus 1, right? This is linearly independent if summation alpha I xi equal to 0, like I from 1 to m minus 1, if it is equal to 0, this implies that alpha i's are equal to 0. Okay, so this is what is linearly independent means. Okay, so that means you cannot express one as a convex, as a linear combination of the other, right? They are completely in a different space. Okay, so this is what we need to show. But let us try to understand the consequence before we show this theorem. Okay, so let's look at the consequence. So given m points, I'm saying that m points can be shattered if and only if m minus 1 points are linearly independent. So I'm talking in RD space. So m minus 1 points, what is the largest value of this set, right? So let's call this set as this. Okay, so what is the largest value of the cardinality of S, right? So that we can shatter it. So what is the largest value of S can be shattered? Can someone say, looking at this theorem?
D.
Yeah, so D, m minus 1 can be up, this m minus 1 can be D, but remember there's an origin also, right? So put together cardinality of S is equal to D plus 1. Okay, so this theorem directly shows that we can shatter up to D plus 1 points. And as soon as I go to next number, right? So if I put x1, x2, x3, suppose this m minus 1 is equal to D plus 1. As soon as I go to the next one, by definition, they are linearly dependent. As soon as I have D plus 1 points in a D-dimensional space, okay, as soon as I have D plus 1 in D-dimensional space, I am done, because by definition, they will be linearly dependent. Okay, and that means they cannot be shattered. So this theorem actually shows that m points can be shattered I should mention, by linear shattered by linear hypothesis. Okay, linear hypothesis. Yeah, I hope this was not too much of a confusion, because we are anyway talking about this. So is this consequence of the theorem clear to people? Rajnish?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Okay, so let's just prove this theorem and just be done with it. Let's do it as fast as possible. Okay, so I don't want to hold up too much of your time. Okay, so now again there is two directions. So if something is not shattered, that means it must be linearly dependent, and if something is linearly independent, then it must be that we should be able to shatter. So this is the two things that we should be able to show. Okay. Okay, so now So let's start. So suppose these m-1 points are linearly dependent, right? So that means there exists some set of points which is equal to this, right? So suppose these m-1 points are linearly dependent. Okay, so what do we mean? Okay, so this is a little harder part of the proof. So let me do this first. Okay, so if m-1 points are linearly dependent, that means you have summation alpha I xi I equal to 1 to m-1. This is equal to 0, and not all alpha i's are equal to 0. Not all alpha I equal to 0, right? So there are some things which are positive. So now what we will do is we will divide this into two regions. Okay. So we will say all alpha i's are positive. Okay, and then when you come to this side, we will say some are positive, some are negative, right? So all alpha i's are positive, some are negative. So now, if all the alpha i's are positive, what does it mean? We can actually do one thing. So in this world, we can take the summation alpha I and divide everything by that. So I will say alpha I will, instead of saying alpha I xi equal to 0, I will take alpha I divided by summation alpha I, and I will call this as alpha I tilde. Okay, I will write this as, and using this construction here, what I will get, summation alpha I tilde equal xi is equal to 0, right? I equal to 1 to m-1, right? This is what we will get. And summation alpha I tilde is equal to 1. That also we can see by this construction. Okay. So what does this mean? So 0 belongs to the convex hull of x1 to xm-1. Right? 0 belongs to the convex hull of x1 and xm-1. So if I put 0 as one sign, so I will take 0 as positive, and all the x1 to xm-1, I will take all of them together as negative. Okay, and now I say we cannot shatter it. Why? Because all the points xm-1 points are forming a convex hull, and 0 is lying within it. So if I'm able to separate these 2 points, these 2 set of points, the convex hull of these 2 points should be separated. If the convex hull is overlapping, how do I separate? Do you understand this? Okay, I hope you do, because I'm going to move quickly. I don't want to hold you up like anything. So now this is the first part. So 0 is lying in the convex hull to x1 to xm. That's why I cannot separate it. Okay. Now some are positive, some are negative. What we will do is we will write this as summation. All the positive things I will put on one side. Okay. So this is summation alpha I xi I going from 1 to some k, and then that is equal to some beta minus alpha I xi I going from some k plus 1 to m-1, right? So all the positive I will put in one side, all the negative I will put on the other side. So this is essentially what we get is, this is alpha I xi I equal to 1 to k, and this one I will call it as I equal to k plus 1 to m-1, where instead of minus alpha I will call it as beta j xj. Okay, so now all the terms here are positive, all the terms here are positive. Again, I will handle it in 2 ways. First thing what we will do is that, suppose summation alpha I is equal to summation beta j. Okay, suppose this is the case, then we normalize everything. Okay, so I will replace alpha I by summation alpha I, and beta j by summation beta j. Okay, so this will be my new beta j tilde. This will be equal to alpha I tilde, right? So this is what we will do. Then what we will get, I will essentially have summation alpha I tilde xi is equal to summation beta j tilde xj, right? So essentially the convex hull of x1 up to xk intersects with the convex hull of what is this xk plus 1 up to xm, right? So that means the two convex hulls are intersecting. Okay, I cannot separate it, right? Convex hulls, unless they are separated, I cannot, unless they are not intersecting, I cannot separate it. If they are intersecting, I cannot separate. How do you separate things which are already intersecting, right? So that means you cannot shatter it. So what I will do is we cannot shatter this because these points you cannot separate. So few of them you cannot, whichever is falling in the intersection, you cannot separate. Okay. So anyway, that much I hope you can follow. And coming to the case where this is not equal, so assume that, so this I will take it as 2. So in 2, what we will do is suppose summation alpha I is less than summation beta j. Okay. So alpha I is less than summation beta j. So what we will do here is that we will divide everything by summation beta j. Alpha I tilde will be equal to alpha I by summation beta j. Okay, and beta j tilde will be equal to beta j plus summation beta j. Okay, so what do we get? You will get alpha I tilde xi is equal to summation beta j tilde xj, okay, j equal to k plus 1 to m, okay, I equal to 1 to m, right, 1 to k. Now summation alpha I don't go to 1, this doesn't sum to 1. So what we will do is we will take this summation alpha I minus summation beta j, whatever is the difference beta j, this entire thing we multiply by 0. Okay. So now if you see this entire thing sums to 1, this entire thing sums to 1. So we will take two convex sets S1, which is x1 with 0, and we will take S2 with the other sets xk plus 1 and xm. Okay, now these two sets again we can't separate because they are intersecting, right? So that's it, we can't shatter this. Okay, so what we have shown is one part of the proof. Okay, so what we have shown is just this part. Okay, so now we are only left with the last part, which is if the set is not shattered, that means it has to be linearly dependent, right? So that part I will leave you to do. Okay, so we will just not prolong this too much. So I will just stop here. So if there are any questions, I will just hang back to answer your questions. Okay, I know there will be a lot of questions. You can do one of two things. You can go and watch the video and come back to me, or you can stay back. All right. So thank you very much for coming on a Saturday. So this finishes VC dimension completely. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, sir.
So,
Yeah, Ankit.
so whatever we did about the VC dimension thing,
Yeah.
it is specific for a two-class classification problem, no?
Yes. So VC dimension theory, whatever we have done is for only two class. That's correct. But analogous theory exists for regressions and even multi-class. All those things are there. Just that it's too complicated.
Okay, sir. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Siddharth.